to the point.
You are looking at what will be the stage for one of America's biggest political shows. Boca Raton's Lynn University wins a nationwide competition to host a presidential debate. Good morning, I'm Michael Williams. Kelly Dunn is off today. Football has the Super Bowl, baseball, the World Series, and presidential politics, the debates. Now Lynn University will be hosting a debate as big as a Super Bowl or World Series in the world of politics. So how did this relatively small Boca Raton school make it to the national stage? Well, here to answer that and our other questions is my guest this morning, Lynn University President Kevin Ross, who understandably and justifiably cannot wipe the smile off his face. Just before we went to air, you said, I imagine, got a big calendar. How many days till October 22nd, 2012?
We're about 349 now.
Not that you're counting at all or will be keeping a tally. Congratulations. I think people are saying, how did Lynn University, around since 1962, a small, thriving liberal arts program there, how'd they make this happen? Take us through it. Take us inside the negotiations, the talks, and how this day arrived.
Sure, I'm happy to. Very exciting times for us. And the way it happened, actually, is 3 years ago, we started construction on a new performing arts center, the Keith C. and Elaine Johnson Wold Performing Arts Center. Very generous gift from the Wold family and others in our community. As we opened that facility, we started to look around it. It was a wonderful place for drama programs and for our music program. And our chief of staff at Lynn University, Jason Walton, had attended Ole Miss and told me what that debate did for his institution. So we put our feelers out there. And
so the wheels start spinning.
It did. Yeah. We started to see what debates were around, and we hosted the congressional debate between Ron Klein and Alan West, and put a few others out there, and realized that the process for applying for the Commission on Presidential Debates had just opened up soon thereafter.
Timeline this for me. So this is about when?
January 2011, this year, is when we put in our application, which is extensive, and it's online and kind of a quiet process.
And then there eventually is a face-to-face, I would imagine, here, correct?
There is.
And talk about that, and talk about who you were competing against, and then the kind of presentation you had to make to say, hey, give us a look here.
Well, you don't really know who you're competing against. Okay. It is a blind process. So you fill out a very extensive application. It's about the size of a few phone books.
It's asking what?
How much square footage do you have? What does the security situation look like? What type of institution are you? What are your offerings? Do you have a public discourse program? So they asked many, many questions, and we went through with a fine-tooth comb and answered all of them.
And your biggest pitch in your mind was what? When you, at the end of the day, were sitting with your staff and said, what's the one centerpiece argument we'll make? What was it that you think turned the day?
Many people asked us that question. I really don't think it was any one thing. I do think it's the venue itself, the institution, being in Boca Raton and being in Florida. I think it was a bit of a perfect storm confluence of events.
And holds this debate, we'll have about 700 people in this wonderful center here to look at the debate.
752 seats, although it will be altered to a degree for the press. So what we've been told by the CPD is this really is not it's more of a television event than anything else.
Your final presentation was when?
Final presentation, the application was put in January of this year.
Okay, so you were done then.
And we heard, I think we heard about 3 months ago that we were a finalist.
And then after that?
After that, we learned about a week and a half ago, and were sworn to secrecy until it came out public.
Oh my goodness, how do you sense, how small a circle was that?
Very tight.
Like how very tight?
Maybe 4 people.
Right.
It was challenging to keep under wraps.
And you swore them to absolute secrecy and stared them in the eye and said not a word of this.
Well, we were told the penalty was disqualification.
Wow.
So it was very high stakes.
Easy to be quiet. On a serious note, you now have this debate next October 22nd. The whole world will be watching this debate between President Obama and his Republican challenger, the final presidential debate. The drama could not be higher. How do you intend to showcase the university? What changes will we see to further enhance your ability to hold a debate of this size?
What's required through the CPD is basically to build a small city. The Commission on Presidential Debates, inside baseball for us now, to build a small city, to house all the media, to house the Secret Service, to house folks like that, inside the tent, if you will, in a gated area on the backside of our campus. So we're going to try to be we don't want to disrupt what's going on our campus as much as possible, but we will be having a series of events, a series of lectures, a series of academic programs. All of our faculty are very hard at work right now, thinking about what we can do on campus, but also off campus with our local community.
What did the Commission tell you to expect in terms of media credentialing for something like that? Enormous, I know.
Thousands. I think it's about up to 3,000.
It's cost, and how do you pay for it?
Cost is, we calculated cost, went out there and got 3 bids with all of our local vendors, and it's about $4.5 million is our estimate. Estimates for other institutions have been anywhere between $3 and $5 million.
And the $4.5 million or so, again, to build and enhance what? What will we see if we were to drive by that campus a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now?
It will be imperceptible from where the debate site will be itself. Really, the fence will go up around the area, and that will be a self-contained unit. However, you will start to see, due to the generosity of some local folks before the debate even came, we're going to be putting a new entrance in on our campus, as well as a stoplight out front.
But all of this will be self-contained on the Lynn campus. The media, everything will be contained within the campus site.
Yes, it will.
Talk about the reaction from your student body. You said roughly, what, 1,700 to 2,000 students?
2,000 students. And
talk about that, the mood on campus.
It was a special day. We heard officially on Halloween, late in the day, and that's when it started to get out via the CPD website. And so the buzz started to get created on social media, and then everyone went off and had a wonderful Halloween. The next day was, ironically, our Founders Day celebration. So this was a particularly amazing Founders Day on campus. Students were thrilled, and it's been hard to wipe that smile off our face ever since.
You have an exquisite sense of timing here. The 50th anniversary, you'll kick it off with arguably what will be the biggest event Lynn will ever take part in. I can't imagine anything bigger.
Well, I won't say that just yet. Perhaps there will be something.
You've got what else do you have in your back pocket, Mr. President?
Not just yet. Let's carry this first.
Let me ask you too. How do you leverage this in the classroom? There's always the knock that Americans and young people as a subset are not interested. They're blasé about politics. This energizes them. How do you, from a point of view of curriculum and discussion about politics, how are you already talking to professors about trying to integrate that excitement into more engagement in the political dialogue over the next year, which will be so crucial for this country?
Well, it's a good question, because one of the reasons we wanted to host this, and we thought that we could, is because 4 years ago we launched a new core curriculum that's received some national praise called the Dialogues of Learning. There's separate dialogues that students read, works of antiquity and works of the modern era, and one of the dialogues is the dialogue of justice and civic life. So this fits perfectly into the curriculum that all Lynn students, no matter their major, are exposed to. You're getting all due credit. Are there any names you need to toss out there that you say, wow, that was part of my team that was pivotal in terms of the online and or personal presentations here? There's a team back on campus who they know who they are, and we're thrilled. I don't want to give out their names because I don't want them to get poached. And are you getting poached for tickets? I'm getting hit up for a lot of tickets, and I've made it very clear to folks we're going to follow the same process that most of the other institutions have done. It's the right thing to do. Virtually all the tickets will be going to students in some form of lottery. We're not exactly sure just yet how that's going to work because we don't have our allotment. After the fact, very secretive, tightly held process, but after the fact, are you picking up a sense of what the pivotal factors were? Certainly the fact that they're coming to Florida, a crucial battleground state, had a huge role to play here, but that wasn't it alone. What are you picking up there? Don't be modest now. Give me a sense after the fact what you're hearing that tilted it in your favor. And after the fact, I heard Wake Forest, others were in the running here? Yes, there were some institutions who had done it before, and I think there's a reason that schools apply for this, and I think there's a reason that they apply again, because it's always very good for the institution, very good for their area. But the commission is pretty tight-lipped about their mystical calculus that they use. How do you see this changing the dynamic, the profile, frankly, the enrollment for Lynn? Have you seen an upsurge in the last few days of people saying, hey, I'm suddenly interested in sending my son or daughter to Lynn University, or those sons and daughters calling on their own? How do you see Lynn 2-3 years from now as a byproduct of this pivotal event? Well, we obviously hope that there will be some benefits associated with this. We've seen an increase in web traffic, significant. We've also seen just a lot of pride. Prospective students, we've had alums who have been calling and writing into us as well. Again, the social media traffic on Facebook and Twitter is all very positive. I love to see our alums who are already proud of their institution become you know, a little more broad-chested as well about how special that this place is to them. You touched on it earlier. Let me circle back, though. You're confident you'll be able to find the money with people who love the university for the funding of this, and you're confident no disruption to daily life on campus. Students won't know a difference in terms of the daily rhythm of campus life and classes with what you have to do to get ready for this. Well, I won't say that. I mean, how big an impact then? I think that there may be some shifts in our calendar. Okay. We haven't done that just yet. How significant? That I don't know yet, because we just found out 72 hours ago. So now it's time to go and make some planning. However, I do believe that, and I mentioned this to some other folks the other day, that this is what colleges should be doing. This is a very important event. If we can put our students up front to a moment in history like this, this is what we should be engaged in. That's why they're held on college campuses.
Was there ever a point when you all first started thinking about this, well, what the heck, we'll give it a go, but you reached for the stars and you grabbed them. Was there ever a part of you, even now, that's still pinching you, saying, I can't believe this really happened?
I'm not trying to be haughty when I say this, but Lynn University is a scrappy institution in a lot of ways, and we've been through a lot over our 49 years so far, and we knew we could handle this. And even when the folks from the commission visited, I think that they recognized that as well. Well,
your tenure for 6 years, you said earlier that you don't want to say you won't top this. When you find a way to do so, I want to have you back on this broadcast first. Can you give me that promise?
That's a deal.
Sir, thank you very much, and congratulations to Lynn University. A pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you.
We are looking forward to covering that debate and all the developments leading up to it. We'll be talking with you more on To the Point. And coming up next, a look at the candidate who had what is arguably the worst week on the presidential campaign trail. Our roundtable takes on that and more when we come back. Last week, on into this one, by the way, probably Herman Cain's worst and toughest week of his presidential campaign. It began with a report that women had accused him of sexual harassment while he was head of the National Restaurant Association in the 1990s. The alleged instances of harassment are something he's been battling now for days. He's not said what happened precisely. Says, though, he believes it's all part of a witch hunt. So what effect will this have on his campaign? Joining me on that topic and more, News Channel 5 political analyst and coordinator of the American Studies program at Lynn University, Robert Watson, and Brian Crowley, author of the Crowley Political Report. First, because I know you were jumping up and down off to the side of the set, Lynn University, a brief comment on your president's remarks. Exciting time for Lynn to get.
I was going to bring my Lynn pom-poms and do a cheer out here, but this is a wonderful opportunity. I've been teaching for 21 years, and I've never walked into a classroom and had students applaud. I've walked into the library and students applauded. The whole campus is abuzz. It's one of those, we're going to have a whole year of those teachable moments. So it's very exciting from an academic perspective as well.
And on October 22nd, depending on how the primaries go, it's a long way, it could be Mr. Cain who's standing there next to Mr. Obama for the debate. Who knows? But Mr. Cain, a very tough week. Talk about it, Brian, from your perspective, about how he's handled these claims of harassment and how much, if at all, you think it's damaged his campaign for the medium to long term.
You know, he's handled it about as poorly as a candidate can handle a crisis. These things happen all the time, where candidates hit a crisis, and it seems like they always go through the same denial, then sort of admitting a little bit of it, then more facts come out, and then suddenly their memory gets better. And then, of course, in this case, as soon as this news came out, you know, I tweeted fairly quickly, how long will it take for the first woman to come forward? You know, denial when you know that there are other people out there who have another side to the story is foolish. And now he's evolved it into turning it into, quote, a witch hunt. He's blaming the Perry campaign.
I was going to ask.
Kind of silly.
Let's segue over that. He is blaming the Perry campaign. How much does that stick? And the same question to Brian. How much does all of this stick to his campaign?
I agree completely with Brian. He's basically doing a textbook how not to handle this. I guess the good and bad news is that there's a long history of prominent politicians in similar situations. Elliot Spitzer, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Gary Hart, John Edwards. We go all the way back to the beginning of the country. So there's a lot of examples of what to do and what not to do. What you need to do is get out in front. Most politicians are given at least one mea culpa, take it, not to blame someone else. He's basically handled a textbook how not to. I think the only good news for Cain is the story about his big flub-dubs with foreign policy, saying that China might be working on a nuclear program when they've had that for half a century, and some other silly comments. Those have been suppressed because this, so he's got two bad stories running. But
conservatives, though, and I want you to respond to this first, Brian, conservatives rallying around him, saying, some in the Republican camp, or likening what's happening to him as, quote, a high-tech lynching that reminds him of that of another prominent black Republican, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. As this debate and argument tries to get traction, both pro and con for Cain, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a little unfair to compare this to the Clarence Thomas case. In this particular, the Anita Hill Clarence Thomas issue, I think that now where you have three women who are now have told Politico and other news organizations that they were part of this sexual harassment charges, there was a settlement. There isn't a question really as to whether or not there was any sexual harassment. There may be some question as to the level of it. He was the CEO of the organization. The organization settled. While he initially said he knew nothing about the settlement, we now know he did know about the settlement. You don't settle if you absolutely positively believe you did nothing wrong. And there are other people who are coming forward who are saying that they were witnesses to what happened. Yes, one of those people now works for Rick Perry, but that doesn't change the charge.
I'm curious about the dynamic in the world of the internet now. Does it help him diffuse the attacks where you've heard him hint, if not outright say, this is mainstream media after me, you're hounding me? Can he diffuse the attacks, or given the nature of the allegations, is it something that sooner or later he has to answer straight on, and no amount of discussion or trying to put this off and have supportive bloggers come up on his behalf is going to help?
Yeah, no, if anything, the social media will hurt this because, you know, what's coming out on the social media is not vetted, peer-reviewed, refereed. So this will take on a life of its own. Historically, these stories, if they're not true, have a short shelf life, a couple of days. But the social media will give this thing legs. And plus, it's so complicated. I wonder if conservatives aren't shooting themselves in both right feet by trying to suggest that it's somehow a liberal high, you know, a lynching kind of a thing. Because this is not new. We've seen both sides misbehaving. And this is such a complicated issue. On one hand, you know, we don't want what's happened historically where people say, oh, if a woman makes an allegation, it's not true. On the other hand, we want to give the candidate the benefit of the doubt. But as Brian mentioned earlier, if it's one thing, if it's one allegation, it's one thing. If it's two, once you get to three, we're in the realm where perception is reality, and it's hard to put this genie back in the bottle.
We'll see what happens next in the polls and on the trail. Up next, what do Hillary Clinton and Marco Rubio have in common? That coming up next. Please stay with us. A new poll of Florida voters says, if Senator Marco Rubio is selected as the vice presidential candidate, here we go again, the Republican candidate will beat President Obama in Florida. So no matter who he was with, whether you're talking about Perry or Romney or whoever, that with Marco on the ticket, big times. But if the President Obama picks Hillary Clinton to be his running mate and should dump Vice President Biden, the president wins in Florida, even against a ticket that has Rubio on it. Confused? That's why we have our experts here to help sort it out. What is this? If you're on first and I'm on second.
Yeah, who's on third? Yeah.
The bottom line is everybody seems to want Rubio on the Republican ticket, no matter who would be at the head of it. Rubio keeps saying, I won't be. Kind of break this down. What does this all say, and what do you think with Florida voters and how they'd react to any of these hypotheticals?
In all of these hypotheticals, and I hear there may be talk of putting Robert on one of these tickets.
Oh, my goodness. Now that the debate's at Lynn University.
The debate's at Lynn.
Fourth party ticket.
But, you know, there are a lot of Democrats and independents who are deeply concerned about, that support President Obama, who are deeply concerned about whether or not he can win. So they're starting to look for some long ball scenarios, and so you throw out the idea of Hillary Clinton being on the ticket, and they think, that's the magic wand that will fix it.
But what's this say about Florida voters? You know, it's hypothetical, but it's out there, and this is what voters are saying for the moment.
You know, the Veep stakes are always full of intrigue, but the irony is that it often doesn't matter. Most presidential scholars believe that the selection of one vice president really swung an election. That was LBJ on Kennedy's ticket in 1960.
Helped sew up the South for him.
Absolutely, exactly right. Now, having said that, 4 presidents have died in office of natural causes. 4 have been assassinated. 1 resigned. Another half dozen have had attempted assassinations or health issues. So the vice presidency is a very important office.
Here's the bottom line, though. Let me ask you. What are the odds of Hillary Clinton on a Democratic ticket? What are the odds?
Well, things have happened before. Under the Reagan administration, the first term, Jim Baker is Secretary of State and later Chief of Staff and Secretary of State, and Donald Reagan flip-flopped jobs for the second term. FDR went through 3 vice presidents. It's not unprecedented, although I wouldn't hold my breath.
And Joe Biden's going to go quietly in the night off of that ticket. And what are the odds of Senator Rubio, who has consistently said, I'm not on the ticket, actually ending up on a Republican ticket?
Oh, I think the odds are very strong that he ends up at least being among the final 5 finalists, and then once he gets to that point, I think it's 100% he's in the 5 finalists. I think once he gets to that point, it's 50-50. He becomes the running mate.
No matter how many times he says no.
It doesn't matter.
Imagine being Senator Rubio and John McCain and Bob Dole come and visit, knock on your door.
Yeah.
They tell you that with you on the ticket, we can win the states with large Latino populations.
It's heady stuff.
Who can say no to that?
We'll see what happens, and we'll be back in just one moment. Please stay with us. Time now for the Crowley Closer.
Well, first let me add my congratulations to Lynn University for getting the presidential debate. It's a huge win for South Florida and Lynn University in particular. Second, I'd like to just do a little bragging here. On Monday, I'm going to have dinner with the British ambassador to discuss politics.
Wow.
And actually, I'm going to be more interested in what the British ambassador is thinking about American politics.
How about the
I'll
British
report back
ambassador on
next
To the
week.
Point?
Yeah, why didn't you get on to the point?
I'll report back next week, and I'll see if he'll join us
And you
next
got all
week.
those young people watching us now?
I brought my boss here today. How about the British ambassador?
Sure, sure. He wants the private dinner, of course. Thank you. That's good for you. Thanks for spending time with us on today's To the Point. We hope to have the British ambassador some other time. And if you'd like to send us a comment about today's broadcast, please go to WPTV.com and click on the political link. Put your tea down, Brian. Enjoy the rest of your day. We wish you and yours a great week. Good day, everyone.